Those voices on the crossbench at the moment is Independent Senator Rex Patrick, who joins me from Parliament House. Thanks very much for your time. Why don't I just get your take, first of all, on the budget? How would you describe this budget in broad terms?
Well, I guess we have to wait and see all of the details in the budget. There have been some pre-budget announcements. I am disturbed by the way in which the government, and we'll wait and see what happens with the opposition, but the way in which the government are just throwing taxpayers' money around for the purposes of buying votes. You know, I'd like to see us have a much better arrangement where we think through all of the projects and potential opportunities on the merits, and we make announcements in a clear and organised way, not hold them all up until the election and try and win over voters in marginal seats.
What spending are you concerned about specifically?
Oh, look, you know, there's a whole range of issues where we throw money at a particular jurisdiction, a particular electorate, and other electorates that are not marginal end up missing out on things that are perhaps have greater need in their electorates. In relation to things like infrastructure, one of the things I'm really worried about is we haven't solved the problem where all of the tier one infrastructure or construction companies in this country are foreign owned, and they get their contracts, they squeeze the Australian supply chain and then transfer profits off to other jurisdictions. We need to make sure, and I've been working on this in this Parliament, pressuring the Department of Finance to make sure that Australian companies can bid for these major infrastructure projects that are being funded by Australian taxpayers. I think that's only fair, and we want to always try and, where possible, grow wealth here, retain the profits here.
Okay, but in terms of actual misspending, I suppose you'd call it, you're saying what, infrastructure projects, you're concerned about how they're being allocated, because if that's the case, isn't that just what the two major parties have been doing for a while?
It is what the two major parties have been doing for a while. They take taxpayers' money and they throw that money at marginal seats for infrastructure, for roads, for facilities and so forth. And that is a form of corruption.
Corruption's a strong word.
Well, it's corruption because what they're doing is taking taxpayers' money and distributing it in a way in which they get a personal benefit, and that is a return to a seat in Parliament.
Being returned to a seat in Parliament,
things should work.
Is that really a personal benefit? Because voters get to decide if they like the distribution of taxpayer money or not. Personal benefit, surely that should be reserved for when someone's actually getting money in return, and that's real political corruption. Pork barrelling would be.
Well, the last time I checked, every politician gets paid taxpayers' money once a month, and it's a relatively good salary. And not only that, there are people that are addicted to just staying in power, and they'll do anything to achieve that. And we've seen a lot of that play out through this Parliament. We need to have honesty, integrity.
No, I understand that. A lot of people agree with that, but just saying anything that helps you get elected, calling that corruption, isn't that going a bit far?
It meets the textbook definition of corruption, and that is where you take taxpayers' money and you use it, and you get a personal benefit that flows from that use.
Okay, so if any given crossbencher does a deal with the government of the day that then helps them get elected, are they corrupt?
When a crossbencher advocates for a particular program, and I've done that in the past. I did that a lot with people like Matthias Cormann and other government ministers. What happens is you advocate, and then the government goes away, does due diligence. They look at a whole range of elements of any particular proposal, and they make a decision on whether or not there is.
That sounds very high-minded, but they might also say, well, we need this guy's vote, we'll do it. So you put a high-minded sort of situation there, but we know how things work in reality. If a government's doing a quid pro quo and it helps you get elected, that's corruption too, isn't it?
Yeah, no, look, I've never done any sort of deal like that. You know, I'll give you an example of something where I put pressure on the government, and that was to get $25 million funded for Cape Hardy for a deep water port on the Eyre Peninsula. I did that because Infrastructure Australia had already done all of its due diligence and had named it as a priority project. So I went in and saw Matthias Cormann and said, hey, mate, this is a problem. We need this problem sorted out for South Australia. And he saw the merit in it. He went through the processes, and Infrastructure Australia had ticked off on it. And then that wasn't related to anything in respect of an election. It was about something that was desperately needed on the Eyre Peninsula. That
right,
had
but
been mapped
okay,
out,
so you can pull up that example,
just
but
wasn't getting
in
funding.
any circumstance, if you get something from the government because they need your vote on something, that could be considered corruption, could it not? Because if anything shows that you're getting things done in the Senate, that helps you get elected.
No, there's a difference between advocating, getting good outcomes for Australia, for the state. That's a different prospect to saying we're going into an election. We need to direct money at this particular electorate. Our spreadsheet shows that it is blue. Therefore, we're going to spend
there can be a
taxpayers' money
spreadsheet,
to
but
make sure we win.
You're a senator trying to get re-elected and get things for your state. They're a local member trying to get things for their local electorate.
Again, I don't mind any local member advocating for their electorate. It's about when that advocacy occurs and it's in the lead up to an election, and there is a colour-coded spreadsheet that helps determine whether or not that
you can talk about the spreadsheet, but let's look at in a situation with a minority or a hung parliament. If any crossbencher in the lower house gets agreement from the government for supply and confidence and something in their election as a result, that's corruption, is it?
Again, if a proposition is put after an election and some crossbencher lays out a case for a particular set of projects or a particular need in their electorate, well, I would expect the government to do due diligence and not just capitulate on the basis
well, you can expect that, but let's talk reality. If you need to get government, remember the hospital Andrew Wilkie got, for example, money for a hospital, and that's probably helped him get re-elected ever since. Is that corruption?
Well, the bottom line is, in all of these instances, is you go through a proper process, you make sure there is merit, there is need, and there is value for money for the taxpayer. No one should ever direct taxpayers' money at any particular project unless that has been done.
But we know the reality is otherwise when governments of any persuasion need votes,
be the reality,
and when
Tom,
local members or senators need to get support to get re-elected.
Tom, it might be the reality, but that's what needs to change. That's what people are sick and
what I'm saying is,
of.
isn't it a reality for crossbenchers as well? To get re-elected, they need to show they're getting things done. They need to have tangible benefit. That's often the case.
Look, crossbenchers get elected for a whole range of reasons. The ability, without permission from a major party, to introduce a private member's bill, to introduce amendments to legislation, to disallow bad regulations as they go through without, without approval from a party. There's many times where I've initiated a disallowance because the opposition, for example, they're conflicted, and by me initiating the disallowance, it causes them to come to a position. Okay. That's the sort of stuff that independents do.
Perhaps some independents, I think some perhaps see some more tangible benefits needed. Anyway, I want to ask you quickly, you're going to run for the Senate after Nick Xenophon announced he would in South Australia. You're not running for the seat of Grey. Was it just too late to switch to Grey? You were no chance of winning that?
Look, at the end of the day, my heart is in the Senate. That's where we conduct the review of government. It's where all the amendments get sorted out. It's the place in which I've done extremely well for South Australia, and in the end, I was talking to Nick last year about the potential of having myself representing Grey, Rebecca Sharkey representing Mayo, him in the Senate, and that would have been a powerful collective combination. Nick Xenophon has announced that he wants to run in the Senate, 50 days before an election, in circumstances where he can't get his name above the line, and that makes things very difficult for him.
So he blindsided you,
I don't want
fair to say? He blindsided you?
I don't want to see myself... Look, I wasn't made aware of his announcement. I had been talking to him throughout. He's made his decision. My problem is if Nick were not to get up in the Senate, it would go to a Queensland party of some sort, and that's bad for South Australia.
Rex Patrick, got to leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you.